In this video, we will present the Satin serial outline type. By default, when you create an object, it gets a fill and an outline type. Let's remove the fill to make it easier to see the outline. The default applied outline type is running. For outline types, the width of the outline is the most important option. The default outline width is 0.4 millimeters, which is the actual thread width. If you increase the outline width, then the software automatically adjusts the outline. For example, for 0.8 millimeters outline width, a double pass is added to make the running line thicker. For more than 1 millimeters, the outline type changes into Satin serial.
Additionally, once you have an object selected, you can go to Outline section. Click on the icon of the currently selected type to expand the list with the available types. Now click on the Satin serial icon to set the outline to Satin serial.
Satin serial is a kind of zigzag stitches added on top of the outline. You can make it wider or thinner just by increasing or decreasing the width of the outline. Let's see how you can customize Satin serial. Patterns are really not necessary for Satin serial unless you have a really wide satin bar. By applying a pattern, you can create extra wide satin bars with a decorative pattern. This is not the usual satin bar. There are also other stitches inside the satin bar which allow you to create a very wide satin bar. When a pattern is applied, there is an additional option, length. By typing a value, you set the length of the pattern. With a usual satin bar, patterns are not necessary and may add additional stitches unnecessarily. There are also various parameters which you may adjust. Handmade corners can be turned on or off. This is a new way of cornering that you can apply on your designs to get a different look and feel. You can also offset the satin line to be outside or inside the shape. For example, you may add 1 millimeter offset in case you have an object with too many stitches before the satin serial in order to avoid shrinking caused by this object. Or you may add 3 millimeters to make space between the fill and the outline. Negative values offset the satin serial to the opposite direction. Density is the distance between two zigzags. You can take control of the density by clicking on this checkbox. Now you can type a value. Lowering the value makes the zigzags to come closer, while increasing the value increases the distance. Compensation is related to the shrinking that an embroidery part may cause. The shrink depends on the fabric, the tension of the thread, and the speed of the machine. So you can change the compensation value when you think that the result will pull.
Notice that you can only view the applied compensation using the slow redraw or find it on the exported embroidery file.
The underlay is a very important factor that affects the embroidery quality. The stitches that go first are called underlay, and they support the stitches on top. You can only preview the underlay using slow redraw. For this satin bar, the auto-selected underlay was a double line. If you wish to have a lighter underlay, you can add, for example, a single line. Or if you want a heavier underlay, you may select netting. This one adds a double line and an additional net before the satin stitches. There are also some underlays that help you build a more prominent satin serial, more of a 3D effect. Such underlays add multiple layers of narrow satin stitches in order to produce that plump satin bar.
Finally, by defining a random percentage, you can create a random stitches effect. This percentage value defines the difference between the random stitches and the original outline. It may take values from 0 to 90%. When defining a percentage value, there is an extra option, random side. Using this one, you can select the sides at which the random stitches will appear, and the available choices are: Side A, the random stitches will apply towards one side of the object. Side B, the random stitches will apply towards the other side of the object. Symmetric, the random stitch applies to both sides of the object. In this case, the stitch length is always the same, but the stitch shifts randomly across both sides. The fourth option is both. In this case, the random stitches are applied to both sides. The stitch length and the direction of the movement is random.